friend, Chef Therese Nelson. She says, we need a blueprint. She said, I understand that my family is from Atlanta, South Carolina, ended up in New Jersey, and now New York. But I don't know how we got here. We need to understand how we got here. What the food does is it points arrows at certain things, like migration patterns. Food also speaks to preferences. Preferences are very strong, and they last across journeys on ships and exile. One of the things that we have to really consider is that Black history in the African Atlantic is history of migrations, exile, movement, motion. It's on foot, it's by railway, it's by boat, it's by revolution. The Black population shifts and changes, but so does the food it eats. People don't realize the Great Migration and the domestic slave trade are two of the biggest shapers of American culture. It means that millions of enslaved people were moved between the upper South and Chesapeake into the middle and lower South. So why does the Southern diet have such a uniform pattern? Because the same people cooking the food bring some of the same plants and seeds with them, same traditions, but also some might lack resources they might have had back home. This is about the history of the people who brought these foods to the American table, about their life stories, about where they came from, who their people were. It's about people for whom a little bit of food narrative included in the rest of their biography might just make it down to the last person.
When I think about Passover, I think about this tenement often, and I think about the East European Jews who lived here and had just gotten off the boat. They had left their version of Pharaoh. They had left the Tsar. They were coming to this promised land, and just thinking about how, their own experience, they had just lived through this story of the Haggadah in a way. And then when I read the article about you and the Black Seder in the New York Times, this new American world kind of was folded into this story. So tell us a little bit about the Black Passover Seder that you've created. We have this opportunity with the Seder plate to kind of plug in the symbols that you need to do the work that you want. And for me, that's the haroset made with the pecans and molasses. Molasses symbolizing transatlantic slave trade, pecans symbolizing making the best of one's exile, transforming it to okra for African heritage, the chicken bones or the shank bone, lamb shank bone, the use of the chili pepper instead of the horseradish for hazeret, the collard greens for maror. Some people even do the hoe cake instead of matzah, made simply with corn. And then do you use a sweet potato sometimes? Sweet potato for the karpas, yes, the spring vegetable. Ways in which we invite Blackness to the Seder table. That, above and beyond just singing Go Down Moses, which is really important. Understanding how we could be both appreciative of not living in those times, but also vigilant about how we manage our own time and affairs in our own day. So Michael, I wanted to show you, we were talking about sweet potatoes and Passover. So this is a cookbook from 1901. So there's like knedlach, and then there's matzo ball, there's Passover latkes, there's blintzes. But here we have sweet potatoes kompot. Wow. So I don't know if she, was looking to the future. She was able to see ahead, and she would know that you'd be adding the sweet potato to the Seder plate. But it's interesting to kind of see these strands coming together. Right, and the fact that she probably didn't have sweet potatoes in Eastern Europe. I don't think so. Yeah. The story has never ended. It's only gotten more richer, more complex, and more heavily braided to bring us back to the realization that this country is a product of its own melange of different groups coming together, competing, fighting, working things out, and sometimes just being hungry together and eating some sustenance, which we can provide to each other happily or not, depending upon the energy we bring to the table.